Now, it's another great pleasure to have you join us in this special program that we'll basically be talking about our guest in a short while. But he is the current and incumbent board chair of the Alliance for Green Revolution Africa, and basically AGRA is the acronym. And AGRA in general has expanded its operations in about 11 countries, and they've empowered at least 30 million smallholder farmers who are able now to feed about 150 million African citizens. It's a big achievement, and they're still expanding and growing. Now, joining with me here in this special interview is His Excellency Haile Mariam Desalegn, who's the former Prime Minister of Ethiopia. You're so very welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. Talking about AGRA, there's so much, that has been done, and you being the chairman, at the moment, there's still, I believe, a lot of work that you also have to do. But what is AGRA doing in tackling the second SDG now that we have a little over 10 years till the end of the 2030 agenda? And maybe you could answer that vis-a-vis with, the Ethiopian experience and what you've seen in Rwanda.
First of all, again, thank you very much for having this interview. Agriculture is at the center of global growth. And if you see those countries who have moved very fast in economic growth, especially when we talk about the Asian tigers, India, China, all the Asian countries, if you see their history of economic growth and development, you can simply see that all those countries who focused on the agriculture and working on agricultural transformation has moved very fast in changing the lives and livelihood of their people.
Right.
So I think for us in Africa, our comparative advantage lies on agriculture, and AGRA is at the center of this movement to bring about green revolution in Africa, and we need an alliance. And we can't do this alone. We need to bring all the stakeholders who are working in agriculture. Basically, governments should be at the center of this work. And a number of partners, also the private sector, should be very much engaged in agriculture. And especially our young people now should be attracted to agriculture, and we should make agriculture much more attractive to our young people. And our smallholder farmers, we call them private sector for say, but they are the ones at the center of the growth of agricultural produce in Africa, and we need to work with the smallholder farmers. That all means we have to bring selected seeds, very productive seeds, and plant nutrition, fertilizer, and organic, both organic and inorganic fertilizer, and again moisture to the soil, which is very important. So in combination, giving agronomic practices which can suit to the condition of bringing about more productivity to our agricultural production. I think this combined effort will bring changes to our continent, Africa. As you said, we have best practices in Africa as well. My own country, Ethiopia, is one that can be cited as a best practice, where we have increased our productivity in agriculture by doubling, and sometimes even in some crops tripling. And your own country, Rwanda, is also, through our evaluation recently, through the scorecard, and Rwanda has stood the first country to achieve high rank in achieving the CADIP targets. In all this, Rwanda has stood first. And so amongst the 5 countries who have achieved a very good result, Ethiopia is also amongst them. And we have Mali, we have Ivory Coast, we have Burkina Faso and West Africa. I think these countries are moving very fast, and so you can see even those who are in the rank of 10, countries like Ghana is showing a very great stride forward. So African countries has started to move forward in agricultural production, and AGRA with 11 countries, as you mentioned, all these countries are the AGRA, major countries, and that shows that AGRA's effort to make alliance of partners to bring about this change is in the right track. As you mentioned, we have to eradicate poverty and as well as hunger to zero.
Right.
But do we see, if we don't do something different, business as usual can take us to eradicating in the coming 10 years hunger? I think that's not possible. So we have to do something new and something different.
Now, talking about something new, adoption of technology in agriculture is anticipated as one of the major challenges in cutting down costs when across the value chain, but also ensuring that agriculture is effective, by the use of technology, sensors, satellites, and other technological mechanisms. Now, how would you scale the use of technology in agriculture on the African continent, and what do you think is the need that needs to be bridged, and the gap that needs to be bridged by technology on the continent?
I think we have huge opportunity as latecomers.
Right.
Those who achieved green revolution in earlier times has not got this opportunity we are having now. The first one is the digitalization, which is one of the most important things. But on the other hand, we have also huge challenge which the others didn't face, the climate change challenge. So we have to see all these things, and adaptation comes at the center of this issue. Both technology smart agriculture and also climate smart agriculture. So I think these smart things is our opportunity at this time. So I think in this regard, we have also best examples in Ethiopia and Rwanda. We both has started to understand the whole soil characteristics in the country, having soil mapping and digitalization, as you mentioned.
Right.
A new technology has come that helped us to have satellite imagery as well as remote sensing and also soil testing combined. We can have the whole country be mapped, and then we understand each parcel of the land with its characteristics. Right. So if we put the necessary fertilizer, both in organic and organic, and putting the necessary seed that's suitable to that area, and also using other agronomic practices, we can double, triple, and quadruple even in some cases our productivity.
Right.
That's where we can make changes, a new change. So that also calls for irrigated agriculture.
Right.
In a different forms. I can mention lots of methodologies that can be used to keep the soil moisture, and that also can be done through technology-based things. Like for example, if you take Israel as a country, it's the most driest place. I visited one of the districts in eastern province, and I saw that I asked them what's the average rainfall annually in this area. They said it's around 900 millimeters. Yes. But Israel gets only 500, but changed the whole thing. How? They changed the whole thing because, and they are exporting horticulture products to Europe. So how they did is using technology, like drip irrigation technology, which is very much monitored technologically. And so I think then our young people are very much digital friendly. Right. And they can make these kind of things happen. The more we have a small size of land, the more we have to intensify and make it smart. So then we can produce high value production and more productive results. So I think that's what I was saying about a new approach and a new methodology with a new result.
Interesting. Now, you've talked about fertilizers and seeds, and one of the challenges for several African countries is importation of fertilizers and seeds. What strategies and policies has AGRA set in place or endorsing to make sure that there is a local production of fertilizers and seeds on the African continent?
AGRA is working with Arabi, I think, to help them produce more productive seeds, quality seeds. So I think seed production, if Rwanda continues on with this pace, maybe in 2-3 years, Rwanda will be self-sufficient, and even would go beyond Rwanda to a regional, becoming a regional hub for seed production and seed marketing.
Right.
So I think it is possible to have seed production at home to the level of self-sufficiency, even beyond, for export of the seeds. And fertilizer production is also possible. The blending the fertilizer, as you mentioned, is one of the creative and technology smart thing. On the other hand, if we cooperate regionally, and East African community can cooperate to have a fertilizer factory in the region. So that would be nice. And the ECOWAS, they have fertilizer facilities. Some of the private sector are working very hard in producing fertilizer. Ethiopia has started already to have a fertilizer at home. So many African countries are working on having an African fertilizer production, and I think we should use this as a regional bloc until we are in a situation where we can have our own fertilizers in each country. But before that, we should have a regional cooperation as we started.
That's quite interesting, and I think it's a great idea that the region that could adopt to make sure that there is sufficient agricultural produce for everybody. Now, they say African population, say by the year 2050, is going to double. But on the other side, it's positive that Africa still has the youngest and fast growing population. How do you think what do you think should be done for there to be food security by the year 2050 when we have the population of Africa at 2.4 billion? And what do you think should be the role of the youth to make sure that there is food security?
I think the first thing I would suggest is people should understand that agriculture is a business. We used to know that agriculture is a subsistence only for eating whatever we need to eat. And we are satisfied with eating, then we always say, that's enough. But agriculture should not be seen as something is grown for subsistence. Agriculture should be seen that it is a thriving commercial thing. And we have to commercialize agriculture. Then we can attract our young people. But otherwise, if you think that agriculture is subsistence, then how on earth our young people will engage in subsistence production? They will not. So what we have to do is we have to make agriculture to be commercial, and it is a business. And for our young people, it will be lucrative business because they are very active in smart technologies, and they use those technologies. Nowadays, even people started to produce horticulture without even having soil.
Right.
So I think the technology is moving fast, and our young people should be at the center of the production process. We have all the trust that we rely on our young people to bring our agricultural transformation in such a way that they engage as a commercial and a business in agriculture. Then we can feed in 2050 the double
the population.
But it's an opportunity. As far as I'm concerned, the population growth is an opportunity. Look, countries who are thriving, China, it's because they have 1.3 billion people.
Right.
India with 1.4 billion people. And Brazil with something like 300 million and above. United States with population. So population by itself is not something which is bad. The thing is whether you have a good policy and also environment that helps this young, especially Africa as a young and rising continent. I think we need to have this kind of thing. So I think it's an opportunity we have to grab.
Now, as we come towards the end of this interview, there has been several impediments when it comes to access to finance for youth who desire to get into agribusiness. What policies or strategies do you have at AGRA to, to, to instill trust in the financial sector for them to dispense loans among the youth in order for them to enter agribusiness?
I think the best strategy is we have to build the capacity of governments to help them de-risk, things that the financial sector is afraid of. So if it's de-risked and if there is a guarantee that the governments take that our young people engage in agriculture, then I think the financial sector will be happier and they can easily access the funding. Because there is no lack of funding. The only thing is people think that agriculture is a risky business. So they don't, somehow make finance accessible to everybody in agriculture. So the whole thing is we have to put a mechanism where we can de-risk. So AGRA is working with financial institutions, governments, how to even partners, donor community or development partners to de-risk, that risk which should be shouldered by the financial sector. I think that can bring more access to, finances. If you take Ethiopian example, we have microfinances, very aggressive and vibrant microfinances. Agriculture doesn't need huge sum amount of money.
Right.
It only needs availability of the money on time because it's a seasonal production. So you can't pass the season in agriculture. So some of the farmers say, when you go to your neighbor and come back, the season passes. So it's as short as that one. So since it's a seasonal production process, we need to avail this finance on time and also a necessary size. So that is the main reason why the financial sector are not happy to go and invest in agriculture. So we have to do that.
Now, one of the questions, talking about risk that just came to my mind is urbanization. It seems urbanization continues to eat up agricultural land because Africa is growing in terms of infrastructure, and this seems to be conflicting elements where you need land for agriculture, but you also need development. What do you think should be done for there to be mitigation of the negative effects of urbanization vis-a-vis with agriculture?
I think we have to look into developed countries, how they pass through. If you take agricultural sector in developed countries, it's maybe 2-3% of the population engaged in agriculture, but they have huge punch of land remaining. So we have to have a proper planning. I think both spatial and regional planning. That's what we miss. Otherwise, urbanization is a positive thing for agriculture because you get the market. You get, industrialization with urbanization goes hand in hand.
Right.
So it all means that you have agriculture producers will be an input to industrialization. So in Africa, we need agro-processing, and that brings a cluster and urbanization. But it is, annexation, and it is an extension of agriculture. Rather, we have to look into an integrated approach than separating agriculture from urbanization. If you look into it, they are complementary and symbiosis is there. So I think we have to look into this, but we need a proper planning, regional planning, that makes urbanization to be more effective. Nowadays, we have technologies. We can have high-rise buildings rather than sparse big kind of things taking space. So I think space maximization on one hand, and on the other hand, also, when there is industrialization taking shape, then people will move from rural areas to the urban areas. That's the obvious way of, transitioning. If that happens, then you will have more land
in the rural areas.
In the rural areas.
Right.
So it's not a problem at all. And it has never been a problem at all. The
Right.
whole thing is how can we synergize and plan properly so that we benefit from both rural transformation and urbanization.
What would be a call to action for the stakeholders that you have, for those involved in agriculture, for the young people? What do you want them to do? How do you want them to participate for agriculture to not just be productive, but to also be for it to be indispensable when it comes to the development of Africa, and basically what you think their role should be in that aspect?
First of all, we have to change our mindset, thinking that agriculture is a backward production system. That's not true. Agriculture can be the best modern production system that can produce surplus for other sectors as well. Then agriculture has been and is more effective in eradicating poverty, maybe 11 times effective than other sectors. You can imagine, 11 times effective than other sectors. Those countries who started with agriculture, economists say is past dependent. So they have a good foundation, so they can move industrialization very quickly. You know, many African countries failed because they started white elephant, big industrial complex, which failed miserably. So if they have started with their comparative advantage, which is agriculture, and then agro-processing, I think they can move even better into industrialization.
Right.
So I think focusing on agriculture is essential for us in Africa. AGRF has passed the last 10 years. When we evaluate it, we need to do business in differently than business as usual. So we are looking that AGRF should be not only one moment event, but it is a throughout the year process. That's the new thing we are thinking about. And again, AGRF to be transforming our African agriculture in a very expeditious way, because we are only remaining with 10 years to make hunger zero and a very tight target.
Right.
And we have to do some things in a different way. By the way, 60% of the arable land globally is in Africa. So you can imagine if our young people are starting up and becoming innovative, then I think they can feed the whole world.
Thank you, Your Excellency, for this interview. We appreciate your time and your brilliant ideas when it comes to matters of agriculture. We appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure.
Thanks so much.